So we did a space analysis of every single room on campus to make sure that we could give students 6 feet of physical distance within those spaces to meet that protocol in places where we've got tables and more collaborative environments, putting in some of the plexiglass barriers to create a protective layer. We won't be doing any large group gatherings. We'll connect virtually on those with those events to minimize the risk of unintentional spread in those communities. And also the cleaning and disinfecting. We've been working from the spring to make sure that we have in place and have on hand the cleaning supplies that we need to be able to regularly clean and disinfect all of our spaces. Fortunately, the way our school is structured, we do have the capacity to make those discretionary sort of differences based on developmental appropriateness and readiness. For young children, they're not as able to kind of be aware of their physical space and maintaining personal space. And so for them, our lower school structure allows us to keep students in kind of insulated groups so that the risk of exposure rate is minimized by the number of students that they're potentially in contact with. In middle school, we're able to also maintain that to a certain degree, not to the same extent we are with our lower school students. Upper school gets a little bit harder, the way students rotate classes and to have the flexibility to continue in their academic progression the way that they normally would. But we've reworked our schedule to minimize transitions so that there's just less interface with a high volume of people during the day. We have communicated when you're in indoor spaces that everyone will need to wear a face covering of some sort because it does minimize the risk of accidental or unintentional exposure substantially. And given the level of community spread right now, we feel like that's the safest way for us to start school at this point. We also have beautiful outdoor spaces, and we plan to use those, and we've invested in shade. And that's a time where kids can take a break if they're not within 6 feet of someone from the mask. There's times even within the day that students will be able to take a break from the face covering, but when we're in class and we're having a discussion or engaging with each other, it really is the safest way for us to interact and be here. We haven't had any negative or unconstructive responses. I think people appreciate the amount of time and attention we've given to this and the safeguards that we've put in place to protect all our students so we can be back at school. And I think that for lots of parents is a relief and something that they want because students gain so much from being physically at school. So it's been a lot of support and some questions to understand how it's going to work, and we've done sessions with our parents to help provide that clarity, and we'll continue to do that. But largely it's just been supportive and grateful that we've taken the time to plan ahead so that we can be ready to begin as anticipated. We're doing a technology rollover this summer with some of our devices, and we will be donating some of the devices that we have that are really in still very good condition through Horizon Savannah, which is a longtime partnership we've had and hosted on our campus, so that students who need devices in the public school system for the start of the year can have better access to those, and we're excited to be able to partner in that way.
We're trying to take into account as much feedback as physically possible for us, whether it be education consultants, but we're also consulting with a lot of medical professionals, other professionals in different organizations, some nationally and then some within our state, and then others that are even parents of our students. Just last week in our task force, we heard from one of the leading pediatricians in the Southeast, and went through a lot of the different spacing guidelines that they're seeing from the American Pediatric Association as well as the CDC and different things like that. And so from a spacing standpoint, we're trying to think about all of those areas, whether it be the classroom, hallways, common areas. All of those things are where we're having to take into account what is that spacing going to look like, even prior to the start of school in the mornings, things that used to be normal for students to gather outside of buildings prior to entering. We're having to take into account pretty much every space on campus. How is that going to look? How might it need to look different than in the past? And then how can we space them as safely as possible?
On one hand, there's the student cleanliness and students that you have to make sure we've equipped to keep themselves clean, throughout the day. And then there's the facility cleanliness. So for us, kind of our year will begin with really making sure our students understand, hey, how do you need to wash your hands? How often do you need to wash your hands? What's the best way to navigate getting in and out of a bathroom? Little things like that, that we take for granted, but we have to remember they're still kids, and we want to make sure that we've done our part to equip them, with the knowledge of how to really what they can do to keep themselves, as safe as possible. And then there's the facilities, side of things. So one of the greatest things that we're excited about is we've recently hired a new cleaning crew that brings over 30 years of hospital experience to our school. And so they've been able to bring a lot of the medical and hospital cleaning protocols that are so different, and so much better than a school is typically used to having. So for us, we're excited to have just that expertise, and they're going to train all of our teachers on some of those key points of making sure that we keep our school as clean as we possibly can. And so that includes, so many different things. So in between classes, students will play a part in cleaning all the desks, so that the next group of students will get a clean desk every time, they come into a new classroom. And then also, while they're in class, our cleaning crew will go around every hour and spray down the high-touch areas with some of the safest but also most powerful cleaning agents that are rated to kill tuberculosis all the way on down, including the coronavirus. So we feel pretty good about really exceeding the CDC guidelines on how we're keeping all the key things that students will come in contact with regularly as clean as we possibly can.
It's interesting, both sides, right? But some parents want to know all the different safety concerns, and if we're wearing masks, and if we're going to the playground, and digital learning. And then we have some who have said they don't want to come if we are going to have masks and do different things. So it's like most concerns, you have parents all over the spectrum, and everybody's kind of feeling a different way about it. And our goal is to find what's safe for our kids. What is the best scenario for our kids? We want kids on campus, especially lower school kids. Lower school kids, ages 4 to 10, they need to be on campus. That social and emotional development is super important, and we want them here. We want them interacting, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure it's safe for them.